His former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
All right, so let's get right to this and talk more about this latest development with our political analyst, Brian Sobel. And Brian, for weeks now, Democrats have been asking for someone outside of the Justice Department to come in, take over this investigation. Now they have that person. What do you think?
Robert Meuller is a tremendous choice here. 12-year head of the FBI, second longest tenure in the agency's history after J. Edgar Hoover. Went through his whole 10 years and +2 with a really solid record. I think he has bipartisan support in terms of his integrity and his lack of partisanship.
So this takes the politics out of the investigative process. We have 2 Senate committees, 2 House committees that were already and still continue to look into all of this. But this is separate from that.
Right.
But my understanding was that James Comey was giving information to the Senate committee, and that may have been at least temporarily suspended. How does the whole gamut of this investigation work? Do they work in tandem, or are they completely separate?
Well, in theory, they would work together, sharing information and that sort of thing. But with multiple investigations, you have investigators running off in different directions, right. Lawyers working in different directions. So we'll see what sort of resources Mueller has and where he can go with all of this. The question of whether he gets the kind of support that he needs is whether people are willing to drop their partisanship and say, yeah, we trust this person to lead at least this piece of the investigation. If there isn't that trust, then we're back to the partisanship. Well, he's, supporting was, a part of the Bush administration or whatever.
Let's talk a little bit about Mueller's role here, the special counsel role. What sort of powers will he have?
Remains to be seen. Basically, he should be given unfettered access to everything and just do an independent investigation. These things always are time-filled, costly, that sort of thing. Anytime you have a special prosecutor, special investigation, for example, Ken Starr looking into Bill Clinton, which resulted in an impeachment hearing before the United States Senate. These are long, drawn-out things.
And we're talking about like Whitewater. That was like a 3-year investigation, I think. Iran-Contra, I think, was 6 years.
Millions of dollars. Right. I heard somebody talking today about, whether this is just slow rolling this thing. You kind of wonder. But for Trump, President Trump, it's in his best interest to get this moving and get it over with. Otherwise, every legislative agenda he has will be bogged down here. And then the 2018 elections come up, midterms, right. Yep. And who knows?
It's interesting that you brought up President Trump, because as of yet we have not heard any official response from the White House on this appointment. But just yesterday, Sean Spicer was saying, "Hey, we don't we don't feel like there's any need for any sort of special counsel when it comes to this."
Yes, the messages coming out of the White House have been, shall we say, mixed. One minute you hear one thing, then the next minute they trot those poor PR people out to say something else, media spokespeople, and it must be a very difficult environment to work in. I heard Spicer talking about at one point the need to kind of give instant information and then come back out and give updated information, as though the president changes his mind enough that they have to almost know what he's saying right before.
Doesn't this sort of take some of the pressure off of Republicans?
Well, yes, I think anytime you have an independent look at something, they can all say, hey, time out. We got to go back to work now. This person's in charge. This person has this tremendous reputation. Let them work on it, give them all the resources they need. Meanwhile, can we get back to doing the work of the Congress?
We don't know where this investigation is going, but we do know up to now subpoenas and records requests have been made, financial records requests of Michael Flynn, the fired National Security Advisor, who we do know met with Russian contacts, and Paul Manafort, the former campaign manager, who we know worked for Ukraine, and there are questions about $12 million plus in finances he may have gotten from that corrupt president who was propped up by Russia based on a ledger that was found in Ukraine, as well as some real estate deals, multi-million-dollar deals he made in the New York area the day after he left the Trump campaign. So the question is, getting access to the financial records of these 2 men, if there's any, where could that lead in connection to President Trump? Because even if these 2 guys did something, that doesn't mean the president had any knowledge or was aware of any of these things going on.
Exactly, and that's in fairness. And then also you have to peel back the onion. Up through the Obama administration, frankly, up until the campaign of Donald Trump for president, people were doing business in Russia all the time. Millions and billions of dollars were made in Russia by both the Russians and Americans and people from all around the world, and nobody said boo about it. And then all of a sudden, when it looked like the Russians were trying to influence our campaign, now all of a sudden it's a big deal about where the money came from.
Which, just to follow up real quick, because we're almost out of time, this could potentially lead to President Trump's tax forms.
Well, we don't know whether he has had business in either Russia or any of the other countries in the Eastern European region that might have connections with Russia.
Yeah, but the fact is, the White House, again, not so much putting out a fire as it has been the last 2 days, but obviously in the spotlight. And again, we're talking about Russia. Stay with us. We're going to check back with you a little bit later.